quote, there are only 2 Dylan originals, comma, plus 2 collaborations with Grateful Dead songwriter Robert Hunter, including the single, quote, Silvio, unquote. And would it be fair to state that Grateful Dead is a very famous rock and roll band?
Right.
Okay, then you continue. Dylan said he picked the other material because he liked it. Quote, Down in the Groove, unquote, establishes Dylan as a recording artist and arranger with the strength of style to transcend the source of the material. You wrote that?
Yes.
And then you write what appears to be a quote from Mr. Dylan, and then I'll ask you if it is in fact such. Quote, there's no rule that claims that anyone must write their own songs, unquote, he says. Miss Baker, did Mr. Dylan say those words?
Yes.
And when you use the words he says, is that Mr. Dylan says?
Yes.
You continue with quotes. Quote, and I do, period. I write a lot of songs, period. But so what, you know, question mark? You could take another song somebody else has written and you can make it yours, period. I'm not saying I made a definitive version of anything with this last record, comma, but I like the songs, period. Every so often, you've got to sing songs that are out there, period. You just have to, comma, just to keep yourself straight, period, unquote. Did Mr. Dylan say those words?
Yes.
You then continue without quotes. The other reason for the others is inevitable, colon. He didn't, that's D-I-D-N apostrophe T, as in did not. He didn't have enough material of his own for an album, period, period. Did Mr. Dylan say those words?
I went back in the transcript and I was paraphrasing him, and that's not entirely accurate. He said he didn't have enough songs that he wanted to put on an album.
And you then continue, quote, writing is like such an isolated thing, period. You're in such an isolated frame of mind, comma, unquote. Did Mr. Dylan say that?
Yes.
You continue, quote, you have to get into or be in that place, period. Did Mr. Dylan say that?
Yes.
Quote, in the old days, I could get to it real quick, period. Did Mr. Dylan say that?
Yes.
Quote, I can't, C-A-N apostrophe T as in cannot, I can't get to it like that no more, period. It's not that simple, period. Did Mr. Dylan say those words?
Yes.
You continue, ma'am. Quote, I mean, comma, just being able to shut yourself off for long periods of time, comma, where you're so isolated no one can get to you, comma, mentally or physically, comma, you know. Did Mr. Dylan say those words?
Yes.
You continue, quote, you need to be able to do that in order to come up with that kind of stuff, period, unquote. Did Mr. Dylan say that?
Yes.
You continue, ma'am, quote, you're always capable of it in your youth, and especially if you're an unknown and nobody cares, dash, like if you're an anonymous person, period, unquote. Did he say those words?
Yes.
He being Mr. Dylan?
Right.
You continue, quote, but once that all ends, comma, then you have to create not only what you want to do, comma, but you have to create the environment to do it in, comma, which is double hard, period, unquote. Did Mr. Dylan say those words?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. When you said that to Mr. Damiano, which I think I have, were you lying to him?
I was misstating the truth because
Mr. Mintz,
Can you let me finish his answer?
The others is inevitable, colon. He didn't, that's D-I-D-N apostrophe T, as in did not. He didn't have enough material of his own for an album, period, period.
I interviewed in 1988 was probably, if anybody asked me who was the biggest star I interviewed, it was probably him.
And as you know, you're here today concerning an interview that you conducted with Mr. Dillon. You understand that? And when was that interview conducted, ma'am?
August 5th, 1988.
Okay. And in preparation for today's appearance here, did you review any notes?
Yes, I reviewed the transcript of the tape.
Okay. And does a tape recording exist?
Yes.
And let me show you a copy or a portion of a copy of the article. This is the only copy that we have. And I'll ask the court reporter to first mark it as Exhibit 1 to this deposition and to please attach it to the transcript. Would you be kind enough to look at that document, and if you can identify it, please do so, Ms. Baker?
Yeah, this is the story that I wrote that ran on the wire based on that interview.
Okay, and what is the title of this article, ma'am?
Well, in this particular newspaper, it says, Dillon survives change in times.
Okay.
Of course, the newspapers put their own headline on the story.
Sure.
I'm not sure what the headline we put on it was.
And it says by Catherine Baker, Associated Press writer, Beverly Hills, California. Are you that Catherine Baker?
Yes.
Steve, I just might ask you, the copy that I have just has 2 pages and seems to refer there being another page.
Yes, those are the only 2 pages that we have. Oh. And I was going to ask Ms. Baker, do you have a complete copy of this at some location?
Yes.
Okay, and would you be willing, at your convenience, to provide both myself and Mr. Hayes with a copy of that?
Okay, sure.
And my question to you, sir, is that after those 3 weeks, and after you started paying monthly the $10,000, your feelings of disbelief about Mr. Damiano's claims of having some connection to Bob Dylan began to resurface.
Are you asking him that? Or
yeah, I'm asking him.
Okay, well, if you want an answer for that, I'll give you an answer. I don't think that Jim was the one that made me give me that disbelief. It was Anthony. I think Jim was just maybe lied to like I was. That's how I perceived it. I took him for a victim just as much as myself. Okay, if there was no connections to Mr. Dillon, it wasn't because of what he said to me. It was because of what Anthony said to me.
Okay, I understand that, and we'll get to that in a minute. I'm not asking about mad now. I'm asking about not believing, not because Mr. Damiano was lying to you or not lying to you, but not believing the claim that Mr. Damiano had some connection to Bob Dylan. My question to you, sir, is whether after those 3 weeks, those feelings of disbelief resurfaced.
Yes, it did resurface. And I also had second thoughts about maybe that just the whole thing was a scam. Okay, or the whole thing was a scam, or also that this music just got stolen from us. It basically just went the way they wanted to go. We paid the money and something else will happen to it. I mean, a million things will go through your head to justify it.
Sure.
But at the time, yes, I was upset. And the bottom line is we lost track of each other after that for a few years, and I just forgot about it.
My specific question is whether after those 3 weeks, you again disbelieved. Let me rephrase it. After those 3 weeks, you again believed that Mr. Damiano really didn't have any way to get his music to Bob Dylan.
No, I never disbelieved that, because I know what I heard. My wife disbelieved that. My wife told me that the whole thing was a lie. I never disbelieved that part. I believed that this music was going to Bob Dylan. I know I believed that in my heart, and I still believe it till now. Now, maybe...
Brian, can we take a half a second?
That I thought about. But also I believed, after a while that Jim, there's no possible way that Jim could have been part of that scam, because we stayed, he stayed working for me for a while after that, and I learned more about what he was going through, and it wasn't really his fault, it was my fault.
When you said a scam, what was the specific scam that you thought might have been a possibility.
Yeah.
What kind of scam was it?
That scam would be something like him and Anthony got together and made me believe that could have been a scam, but now I know better. Well, because of my relationship afterwards.
Sir, so the scam that you thought might be a possibility is that Mr. Damiano, wanting your 10 grand, and got together with Mr. Tiller to lie to you about alleged connections with Bob Dylan to get you to invest the $10,000. Is that the scam that...
It would have been a good scam if it was done that way, but they didn't want the money. I didn't pay them any money. The money was paid to the record company. He wanted to record a record, and that's, you know, that's all he wanted is his song produced.
The record company, you didn't pay any money to Sony or CBS. The money you paid went to the recording studio.
To the recording studio.
My question to you, sir, is one of the things that crossed your mind 3 or 4 weeks after this meeting was that in order to get you to pay the 10 grand, Mr. Tiller and Mr. Damiano may have lied to you about their alleged connections with Bob Dylan to get you to pay the 10 grand. Is that the scam that crossed your mind?
That's one of the thoughts that came to my mind to justify what I did to myself, but I know it's not true.
Well, you know it's not true. How do you know it's not true?
I know it's not true because of my continuous relationship with Jim.
Well, sir, you have no idea, do you, as you sit here today, whether in fact Mr. Tiller has any contact or ever had any contact whatsoever with Mr. Dylan. Is that correct?
I don't know for sure. No.
You have no way of knowing that one way or another. Is that correct?
No.
Other than the fact that Tiller told him?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Based on what he told me, he does. Now, I don't know if he really does or not, but based on
whatsoever with Mr. Dylan. Is that correct?
I don't know for sure. No.
You have no way of knowing that one way or another. Is that correct?
No.
Other than the fact that Tiller told him?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Based on what he told me, he does. Now, I don't know if he really does or not, but based on his words, he does.
But you know that the record went nowhere.
I don't know that.